Welcome back, Truth Seeker. This morning, one of the headlines we're reading about is the murder of three young men, three University of Virginia football players. And they're saying the killer is another student at the school who might have been hazed and bullied by the same football team. My first thought when I saw this was, why are there so many shootings in the colleges that are so close to the federal city, the same city that's actively working to undermine the Second Amendment? My second thought was, I wonder what the Virginia football team did this weekend, and I saw they were beat by Pittsburgh 37-7. And I thought, we had quite the ritual in Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, Joe Biden's birth state earlier this year. We called the bridge claps on January 28th. But anyhow, it is Joe Biden who said there will be major gun reform. And all these stories are drops in the bucket towards that. But that score sure does stand out in light of the shooting agenda I've been talking about for a decade, in which I've written a book about. Talked a lot about the numbers 37 and 44 in state-sponsored shootings that serve this agenda to undermine our rights and liberties. And the reason 37 and 44 matter, of course, there were 44 points scored in the game where, again, Pittsburgh won 37-7. And by the way, notice Virginia also fell to 3-7 for the season in this game. That's their current record, 3-7. But the reason these numbers matter is because in Gematria, shooting equals 44 and 37. And for the record, so does the abbreviation UVA, which is how they abbreviate University of Virginia. And for the record, the name Joe Biden also equals 37 and 44, who was once the VP to number 44 Obama, who ran on hope, which equals 44 forward, 64 in reverse, and he was elected 44 years after the Civil Rights Act of 64, and his name Barack Hussein Obama equals 64 like civil rights. But anyway, this school has the perfect initials for a shooting ritual. Right after the perfect team record occurs, and right after the perfect score. And again, Joe Biden, born in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Remember, the bridge claps was on 128, 12 months and 8 days after he became president, and bridge claps equals 128, as does Fern Hollow, which was the name of the bridge that collapsed. And for the person who's watching this and scoffing, you can keep scoffing all you want, but did you win any money this weekend on UNC improving to 9-1 over the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, which equals 91? Because if not, maybe you have a thing or two to learn, because this knowledge will show you how rigged the games are, how rigged the politics are, and how rigged the news stories are. And I've been explaining ritual murder and sports and news and politics and agendas and how it's all connected like a broken record for every single day for going on a decade. And it's always coming back to these same numbers when it pertains to shootings. Something else I do find strange, if you add up the gematria of the three men who are shot, just as their names are written in the story, again, you have Deshaun Perry, Lavelle Davis Jr., and Devin Chandler. If you add up the gematria of their names, as well as the shooter, Christopher Darnell Jones Jr., notice when you run the alphabetic order forward, the names of the three gentlemen are 379. When you run the alphabetic order in reverse, the name of the shooter is 379, which happens to be the 75th prime. And that's a number that has a lot to do with order and who's running the show in this country. Again, D.C. is known as the Masonic City. The Jesuits have been there longer than the federal government. Modern Freemasonry is a Jesuit creation. They are both orders. 75 connects to phrases such as order and order out of chaos. And again, that's their mottos. Order out of chaos. Create these stories, traumatize people, and then say, see, give up your rights and liberties so we can keep you safe. Again, look into some of the shows they've put out in recent years, like Utopia, about billionaire types who run governments and media, raising children to do things like become mass shooters and participate in propaganda like this for the sake of agenda. If you haven't seen that show, Utopia, it's also about billionaires faking a pandemic to vaccinate and sterilize and kill off the vast majority of the world's population. Amazon was nice enough to remake it in 2020 during the time of the lockdowns and pandemic. It's amazing how they got that out at just the right time. But yeah, RIP to these young men. And again, I would say that all the people who shrug off this information, they essentially become part of the problem and are the reason these things continue to persist, even though they've been exposed and out in the open for, again, going on a decade now. All right, Truth Seeker. Until next time.